Hello everyone. If you've been following the videos, you've created an environment look like this. You might have like a capsule in it or something like that. You will have created your own camera, and may have even created or hooked it up to a body. So today what we're going to do, instead of hooking up to a body, we're going to actually just control the camera. So I've deleted all my cameras except for the main camera just to keep it simple, and we're going to start with that. Now you have two ways of controlling a camera. Basically using a pre-made script or creating your own script. If we're the old days, I would suggest making your own script because the original pieces were a little clunky and they weren't always perfect. Now they have a host of stuff that you can use, and we're going to take a look at some of these right now. And let's just go ahead and jump right to it. So because I have my camera selected already, and here it says up here main camera, I'm going to add not a new script but a previous script, and I'm going to do a search for it. So if you look up the word control, this will give you different controllers that will help you move either a body or a camera or both. The first person controller I've used before in the past, I usually had to modify it a little bit, but it works well. If you were peeking at what I had before, what I'm going to do is not use any of these. I'm going to use a mouse one. And the reason being is that I am planning on using a mouse for this game. Remember, whatever you're putting it on is going to have different controllers, whether it actually be like an Xbox controller or you're putting it on a phone. I'm worried only about the PC settings, so why not do one that has the word mouse in it, right? And as you can see, there's only one, and it's a simple mouse rotator. So when I do that, in fact, I'm not going to do that first, because at first I wanted to show you what happens without it, which is nothing. So it gives me a nice static view. I'm right-clicking my mouse and dragging, nothing's happening. I'm using my middle mouse button, nothing's happening. I'm using my left mouse button, nothing's happening. But when I go ahead and grab that component, the simple mouse rotator, I'm going to hit play again, and all of a sudden, whenever I move my mouse left, right, up, down, it's going to move with me, so I can take a look at everything. I might be able to see this ball roll off the edge. That's all you're doing. You're getting a nice rotator. Now it feels a little drunk, right? It's a little scary. Some of that might be the size of your environment. Some of that might be that you have to go in and change the script. So just because you're not writing the script doesn't mean you're necessarily done. So let's go ahead and jump into the script. First off, let me get out of the play mode, and I am going to double click into the simple mouse rotator. And some of this stuff should look extremely similar. First, or familiar, maybe familiar might be the better word. First is the name simple mouse rotator. We saw that, that's what we selected from. Everything has to have a class name in Unity. Now at this point, you're not really worried about, unless we're going to do our own fresh script, don't worry about this so much. When you're just modifying it, don't touch this, because you want to make sure you can always find this. Then it sets up all the variables. And these, again, if you're just learning C# now, it may not look very familiar to you. Vector is a nice one, because that vector is, if you took a physics class, is a point with a direction, if you want to call it. So it's both magnitude, meaning size, so I could be going 50 miles an hour, or I could be going 50 miles an hour north. Now, not only do I have a magnitude of speed, I have a direction of speed. And this allows us to put something in a specific direction. Rotation speed is 10. That probably was a little fast, right, for us? So why don't we take it to 5? Because my guess, to be honest, I don't know. I haven't reset this in a long time, but I'm guessing that's degrees. And then damping time, let's not play with that. And then we have vertical mobile. Let's stay away from these guys. Vector 3 just means it's a vector in three-dimensional space, and vector 2 is essentially on a plane. Now these guys you should have seen before. We saw the void start and we saw the void update. They've changed them from private, or excuse me, from public to private, but that's okay because we're not really going to use this. We don't necessarily want the let's go to Unity real quick. We don't necessarily want this cylinder to be able to control or talk to this camera at this point in time. So let's go ahead and leave that off. Plus, there's also security concerns whenever you make a Unity project. The more public things you make, the more it's easy to hijack your code, put viruses in it, and do all that bad stuff. So if you can go private, always go private. But that's a topic for another time. And now we'll see the update, and you'll notice that the start is very simple. It really just sets off an initial rotation and we go from there. So let's look at this update. Why is it updating? Because every time you move the mouse it wants to do that, so it can't put it in the start. Instead it's going to go in the update. So what do we see here? These again are variables. Float just means they're going to be a decimal number. If you put them in as this, that usually means they're referring to a number before. If you are putting them in by yourself, you should usually put the F afterwards, especially if you're using a decimal, because that means it'll force it to be a float. Otherwise you might throw an error. Okay, now input H is not previously set because this is its first introduction. If it was up here at this level, this float would have to override the input H. But so really what that says is I'm creating a variable called input H. I'm going to figure out what it is later. And what's it doing here? It's actually just getting X, the X information, and the Y information is going to go into V. So H, if you think about it, then probably stands for horizontal, which makes sense because in Unity Y is up, so V is going to be vertical, which is going to look for the mouse Y stuff. I don't want to get too into this because we'll talk more about this later, but that's kind of the basis. Now it has a bunch of if statements in there, which essentially is forcing you not to spin around like a crazy man. So it won't let you, it kind of forces specific views. In fact, this is the beautiful thing about watching other people's, reading other people's script, is the good ones will always leave these comments, which you see by the double slash, and it says we're going to avoid springing the wrong way from positive to negative, because if you remember from your geometry class, cosine is positive in the first and fourth quadrants. So if you go from first to second quadrant, all of a sudden you flip from a positive number to a negative number. And that can really do an instant jerk to the camera. Likewise, sine is positive in the first and second, but negative in the third and fourth. So this is just creating that stability so you don't go crazy and you don't get a weird 180-degree camera flip. Okay, so keep reading. You'll see here rotation speed. Remember that was the one we changed up here from 5 to 10, so that should slow us down a little bit as terms of speed. And then we have a bunch of target angles. And notice when you save it and you push the Unity button, it takes a little bit longer time because it's actually recompiling that code. But what we see is that there wasn't a huge effect. So popping it back into this space, the problem is that what we tweaked may not have actually been the actual parameter that we needed to tweak. So let's go ahead and take a look at the script again. We tweaked up here the rotation speed. And I think I've reset it back to the original values. But when we look at where it's used, the rotation range that we tweaked is here, here, here. You can see it often, but the problem is it's only dealing with the mobile input. Let's go check for the regular input. This is your regular input, and that's the only thing that does the mouse. So that cross platform get X, get XX, and get XY are the only thing that really change, right? And if that's the case, then unfortunately what we have to do is fix this. So let's go ahead and try just a simple number, and unfortunately there's no parameter that we can associate with, or some type of variable. So let's just do 0.1. So that's literally going to be 1/10. I'll just put an F in front of there just because we know it's got to be a float. So it goes 0.1 F, and hit star, and then save, and then I'm going to go ahead and push play again. And now you see a much slower turn as we go. It's a lot less problematic, but maybe it's not quick enough. So at this point, what you want to do is you want to tweak it a lot. But you don't want to just have to go in and manually do it in the code. I think the better way to do it in this case would be to actually put a variable here. So we're going to call this rotation speed. Oh, actually, oh no, there's already something called rotation speed in there. So we're going to call it something else. We'll call it, that's right, that was the original, was rotation speed. So we'll call it mouse rotation speed. And as you can see, there's a huge squiggly line underneath this. This is the one problem with Visual Studio versus MonoDevelop. MonoDevelop would not freak out about any of this stuff here. But Visual Studio, if you don't load it correctly, it has that problem. So what I'm going to do instead is I am going to go ahead and create this right underneath this. And I'm going to do mouse rotation speed. I'm going to copy this exactly. And we're going to say that this is 0.2 this time. F with a semicolon. So it still has the squiggly lines, but don't sweat it. This is correct. Let's go back down here, and the one thing I did forget to do is if this is on H, I'm gonna make a copy of it, and I am going to make a copy in terms of V as well. So this guy has well, actually now we lost our squiggly line because we've properly declared the variable. But the other thing that we've done here is that we put it on both H and V, because chances are you want it to go as slow or as fast in the horizontal direction as the vertical. There's no reason to decouple these and make them two separate variables. So let's go ahead and hit save, and this should work. If not, Unity will give us a good error. As you can see, I'm still getting my wonderful warnings here. And I am going to go ahead and push play, and now it's a little bit faster. Actually, I think 0.2 worked. I'd be happy with this, but if you guys want to go out and try it, feel free to play with any number to see what type of speed you'd like to do if you were playing this game. Okay, back to the regular space, and now what I want to show you is kind of the cool twist to everything. So remember, we created the new mouse rotation speed, and we have it at 0.2 now. We had it in the code there, and we could manually update it in the code, but if I click, I'm going to click onto my camera. You'll look into the inspector and go all the way down and look. Remember that rotation speed that we set from 10 to 5 and then back up to 10? Well, right underneath it is that mouse rotation speed. And now we do not have to redo the script in order to make this adjustment. So let's go ahead and hit push play. And if I go again now, all of a sudden I got that nice slow lazy turn again. I can hit stop. I can go ahead and go back to 0.2. And this is a very nice way to tweak it. Now I'm getting a little bit faster. Okay, so then play with it all you want. Get what you want for your specific scene. And come back for the next video. Thanks.